Hello, everybody. We are Daria and Ivy. We are encountering some madness today on our Steven Universe podcast, Not So Giant Women. Time for Marble Madness.
Marble Madness, which makes me miss the video game they've almost certainly borrowed the title from.
Oh, I think there's no almost with these people.
Oh, yeah.
Considering they have actually been spawned directly from a video game.
Yeah, Marble Madness, in which you were a marble.
Yes. The game was from, 1984 or 5?
Yeah, I remember it was one of the first ones available on the Amiga, and that was when that came out a bit later in the 1980s, so that kind of era.
I think I only remember, an arcade version. I'm not sure. But I was more Pac-Man girl, Let's watch some cartoons.
Are the crystal gems will always save the day.
We learned something new because of your decisions.
All right.
But yeah, this was a pretty bad idea.
Aw, man.
Well,
what have we this time? Let me pause to gather. Oh, yes, because we start with Connie introducing Stephen to a new to him series of books that appears to be some kind of hybrid between Harry Potter and the works of Philip Pullman. And we kind of go back and forth between Stephen learning about these books and reading them in the wrong order and not understanding what a familiar is, to new giant versions of Peridot's ball robots plummeting to Earth, which the gems destroy every time. After a few rounds of this, including revisiting some old locations, Stephen suggests maybe they should try following the Peridot to see what it's doing. Garnet agrees because we can't fight these forever. Well, we can, but I don't want to. So they ride the latest of the big Peridots down through the warp pad to the kindergarten. It turns itself into a descending pyramid platform, which descends into the ground to reveal that at the bottom of the kindergarten is a kind of control console space. And the Peridot platform drops off a part of itself, which becomes a hand-like bot to turn on the console, which brings us a couple of giant hands and an image of Peridot herself on the projection screen. As the hands act as tools and Peridot lets out a bunch of technobabble about fixing up the kindergarten, the gems hidden away find this quite alarming, and we're going to have to find a way to stop this. Stephen's all, we could ask her what she's up to, and no, right, here's the plan, and we do this, and you strike here, and Stephen stays here, and of course Stephen has done no such thing. Stephen has walked up in full view of Peridot's view and is introducing himself as Stephen. Peridot asks if Stephens are now the dominant life form on Earth. And he says, no, it's still humans, and names a bunch of humans, including Onion, I think. And Peridot still finds Stephens and humans alike pretty off-putting and prepares to use one of the giant hands to squish him before the other gems leap into action to save Stephen and alarm Peridot that there are other gems, these crystal gems, on Earth, before smashing up the control space with Amethyst using one of the hands to break the main crystal, I guess, which shuts the whole thing down. And they reflect now that they know that it seems Peridot plans to try to reactivate the kindergarten. However, this was good information, but Stephen had a bad idea in how to get it. A bit of a quick summary of that one. That's because we do spend a lot of time just sort of going back and forth between new Peribots and Stephen trying to read the book series.
yes. And trying to convince the gems that they should do more than just blow them up.
Yeah, which does take a lot of getting through to them on that front, but we know that the idea of other gems coming here is something of a button for them, so it's understandable it takes a while to sink through.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we seem to have some plot moving here.
Yes, definitely. There's actually very little story in this one. You very much feel that this is building towards the greater story with whatever Peridot is connected to and her plans for the kindergarten. And this gives us basically the key confirmation that Peridot, in fact, has plans for the kindergarten, which was something we could only kind of mostly assume so far based on the bits of dialogue and her talking to herself and what the Peribots did. She calls them plug robots, but far too late after too many appearances for me to call them anything but Peribots. So too little too late, Perry.
I'll take it.
But yeah, and reveals even to the gems that there is more to the kindergarten because none of them expected this control area below. I guess they thought kindergartens just kind of ran themselves or were just overseen by gem farmers or something up above, which does bring a comical idea of some of our gem heroes in like big straw hats and overalls and chewing on a bit of straw.
Oh, stop. Okay. Oh, okay.
And yeah, Leonard confirmed for us that Peridot, typically of her kind or not, regards the non-crystalline species on Earth as just an infestation to be rid of.
Yeah, get these Stevens out of here.
Yeah, so I kind of get the impression they want to sort of start their conquest machine up again and hatch themselves a whole bunch more troops from the kindergarten and basically scourge Earth's resources.
Yeah, make everything look like the kindergarten.
Yeah, I always thought that was a good bit of art, this the sort of dryness and decay sort of leaking out around the kindergarten where you see like the vegetation dying off and the ground looking burnt.
Yeah, it definitely has that feeling that it has been sucked dry of everything good. Yep.
Yeah, and I guess even after 6,000 years, it still can be put back into action.
6,000. They did put a number on it this time.
Yeah, so
6,000 years of incubation, I think Pearl said.
Yeah, so we've sort of got more of a time frame for when things have been going on in Gem Country, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So the other major thing here, of course, this leaves Peridot and presumably anyone she cares to talk to, because it seems pretty clear she's talking to the gem powers that be on some level, that there are definitely people, including gems, still on Earth, and that could be something to deal with, even though she says it should be quite easy. She's probably learned that it might not be as easy as she thinks, as they just broke up all her stuff.
Yep. They seem to be frustrating all of her plans.
Yeah, we don't know if Lapis has made it home yet or what she makes of any of this, if she has.
Yeah, she definitely did not expect on any level to encounter gems on Earth. If you kind of analyze some of the things that Peridot was saying in that exchange, there's like a fair amount of information there about kind of what the other side knows, like that apparently I think the phrasing she used was, but gems were wiped out on Earth. And that's very specific, like, well, we thought everybody, all the gems were dead there.
Yeah, definitely. And wiped out, not just abandoned. So obviously they assumed anyone left there didn't just die, they were killed, maybe as part of their big off-screen gem war.
Right.
And I'm trying to interpret her reaction of crystal gems, and I'm still sort of torn between her meaning crystal gem, what the hell is a crystal gem, and crystal gems, those guys?
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit inscrutable in that one, but I guess also part of me thought crystal gem was also just the long word for gem, which I think it's safe to say based on her making that sound, it's not.
Yeah, she seems like she, Pearl is all like doing her battle cry, her like, because we are the crystal gems, and her crystal gems? Like, who the hell are you? You're what? Funny. Yeah, but she clearly didn't have an angry reaction to that. Like, she didn't freak out or anything. Like you said, she had some kind of confused reaction. And
I couldn't quite tell which way the confusion was going, whether it was stymied recognition or just complete befuddlement.
Yeah, it's just the Peridot version of new phone. Who's this?
Yeah. Yeah, even what little we've seen of her, Peridot seems like she can potentially be a bit of a petty person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which probably puts her in great stead to just send robots from across space and remote repair facilities and find breakfast stickers.
Oh, that pissed her off, didn't it?
It's destroy iconography.
Yes. Why do you keep destroying my thing? Yeah. She said a couple other pretty interesting things in there. Did you hear when she said about the red eye didn't pick up the presence of any gems on this planet.
Yeah, I noticed that.
That actually is kind of confusing because she's clearly saying that the red eye was supposed to observe them, but when we saw the red eye, it seemed like, at least Pearl said, it's going to crash into Beach City and crush us. It seemed to be sucking stuff into it. Like, it didn't appear to be observing. So I don't know if normally it reports by taking samples of things into itself and flying back away, but Pearl seemed to think it was going to hit them.
Well, it could be that it had a sort of two-pronged mission, and one of them was to sort of get rid of anything, take up anything useful, get rid of anything that could be in the way of starting another gem battle platform, and also is supposed to have a side function of, look, if you see any more gem stuff down there, then throw up a flag and let us know, which it didn't because it was destroyed and hence couldn't tell anyone anything.
Right. I'm just thinking, like, if it was communicating anything or like sending waves back or anything like that, I don't know if it would have had to get back to the planet to report itself. But
well, so far they seem to not be gem technology, whether by design or limitation, doesn't seem to do sort of instant observation, because there were no sort of cameras or anything built into the Peribots to tell her or whoever was going on. They had to report back. And in fact, she didn't know anything in this case until it actually went and turned on the gem Skype and she could see what was happening.
Gem Skype. Yeah, there is that. I'm just kind of confused by the whole red eye thing, partly just because if it was supposed to come back and it didn't because they destroyed it, it seems strange that she's just acting like she got, oh, well, it didn't report that. Like, well, it didn't report anything because it blew up. So I just think it would have been funny if, like, they were receiving communications and then they just figured that it was broken because it just kept seeing this purple gem slam into it over and over again. That would have been funny.
Maybe they're just horribly overconfident because they would fit with, they go, oh, well, nothing's been reported, guess no news is good news. And she seems to, in this episode, even though she knows her robots have been destroyed over and over, she seems to only reach the conclusion when she sees the other gems, oh, you've been destroying my stuff. Apparently content to think that her robots and equipment have just been falling down on their own all this time or something. And that, surely there couldn't be anyone actually fighting against me.
Right, or like theorizing that maybe there's environmental factors, like the atmosphere is hostile or it's falling into something that it can't navigate in or something.
And it doesn't cross her mind that, I mean, she knows humans are or have been on Earth, doesn't cross her mind they could be responsible, but from what we've seen, it wouldn't be that beyond human technology just to break up one of the bots by hitting it really hard, even if it was just with like a bomb or a missile or even just hitting it really hard. They actually don't seem that sturdy.
Yeah. I mean, it is gems punching them and drawing and, destroying them and explosions and stuff. But you're right. I mean, if you used weaponry, you could probably destroy one of those with human technology, no problem at all.
Well, even though it's gems hitting them, they basically go splat first go. And and with the smaller ones, Peridot just stepped on one and squished it. And even though gems are usually stronger than humans, I don't think they're Superman level strong that stepping on something is with the force beyond what humans could achieve with all the myriad things available to us.
Yep. Seems like the only exception to that was they seem to be having some trouble with the last one, that they finally let it live and let it show them what it was up to, I guess. Like Pearl's on top of the thing, stabbing it. Stop coming here, you stupid boss.
She was just working off frustration.
Yeah, and Amethyst was down with that. Let it out, get crazy.
And Pearl was kind of funny with her spear half stuck out of her head.
Yeah, I love that. She's just like waiting for Garnet's word, and Garnet's like, Steven's way. And then she's like, oh, and her weird unicorn horn is going back into her. It's a very strange visual. I love that. We can't fight these things forever. Well, we can, but I don't want to. That's hands down my favorite line.
And we are, before that though, we're back to the idea of other gems coming here is so horrific to our gems, particularly Garnet, that they sort of just attack and destroy without thinking. And it's not until Stephen actually suggests in so many words, let's take another tack, that it seems to even occur to Garnet. And normally she's got a head on her shoulders for that sort of thing, but because this is just the thing which freaks her out so much, she's probably already destroyed. In fact, when they're in the pit near the control area, she's all like, we don't need to know this. We don't need to ask this. Isn't the time for those questions. And Stephen for once just sounds like the time for questions.
Yeah. He's used to not knowing anything, and he has the blessing of not knowing what they know, like how dangerous this is or whatever Pearl and Garnet know about where they come from.
Yeah. And the first time he asks follow-up questions and he's told not to.
Yeah, I mean, I usually agree with most aspects of Garnet's approach, but in this one, I think you're right. It's kind of just the mad button that similar to what happened in Warp Tour, where they wouldn't listen to him because he was reporting something that would be so catastrophic if it was true that they're like, no, you didn't see that. Nope. No, you didn't. So
yeah. And makes sense that it would either fog or she just wouldn't properly pay attention to her future vision because she's just not thinking into the future beyond let's smash up the big ball robot.
Yeah, you solve the problem if you punch it until it falls apart. It's not trying to do anything now, she says. But, and usually she is a little more pragmatic than that. But yeah, she does have this very explosive response to conflict sometimes where she's just like, oh, well, it's coming at me and I'm going to punch it.
And especially when her mama bear tendencies come in and she's protecting Stephen and or the entire Earth. And in this case, she thinks both.
Yeah. So, and I do like that Stephen wants to ask questions, but she decides to try his way and see what happens. She's recognizing that he has an innovative approach to this that might make it so that they don't have to fight balls forever. So, and then he just kind of took it too far. He seemed to be really just almost happy-go-lucky in this episode. He was very spirited and I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to befriend this ball and call it Funk Master and talk about its funky flow and give it nicknames. And he just seemed so excited about the whole thing. And
yes, he can only contextualize the ball bots as he sees them. He doesn't have a true context for their connection to Gem Homeworld. And the bots themselves haven't really offered up much of a threat because even the big ones, the battles are over fairly quickly and the small ones can just be crunched. So he probably doesn't quite understand what the big deal is because it's just, oh, some balls, how annoying. Wonder why they're here.
Yeah. Why are they crawling up onto
The Gem Homeworld's a bit hard up for resource at the moment because just keep sending ball after ball after ball. They're not going, well, let's just send a whole bunch of gems to Earth and work out what's going on once and for all.
Maybe at this point they're just like, whatever, you're the sysadmin. You figure it out, Peridot. Send your drones. Yeah. We're not going to waste any gem power on this.
It's a budget thing.
Yeah.
But put in an application request at the end of the gem financial year and we'll consider it.
Mm-hmm. I like the giant marble robot balls full of goo that Amethyst enjoyed playing in.
Oh, yeah. I remembered the goo as soon as I saw the big one. I thought, aren't those things full of goo? That awesome goo stuff. And
Goop hug. I love it so much.
Oh, this is great. No.
I just love that. It's such a cute hug. She just slams herself onto Garnet, who just barely reacts, and then just pulls Pearl into it. This is cute.
Yeah, we're all part of this.
Come, embrace the goo. I would have liked to see her eyes during that. Was she sort of grinning, or was she just stoically staring into space, enjoying the goop hug?
Sometimes that is her grinning.
Yeah, Garnet does have her own way of doing everything. And then we have, when that first happened, they had just protected Connie and Stephen, who were reading on the beach. And Connie is starstruck. I love hanging out at your place. It's interesting that you made the comparison that just about everybody puts those two things together, Harry Potter and His Dark Materials by Pullman. I guess because wizards and witches who don't know that they're wizards and witches at the beginning, plus the very clear reference to the animal companions.
Yeah, that was, once you've read any His Dark Material stuff or even seen the adaptations, that pretty much leaps out at you as a riff or a reference.
Right. The familiar even had a really complicated long name. It's a talking falcon named Archimicarus. Yeah, I like those books a lot.
It's so long since I've read them. I think I've still got my friend's copies in my cupboard somewhere.
Yeah.
Notice Connie still is taking her glasses around even if she doesn't actually need them.
They're so tiny compared to her actual eyes in this episode.
Yeah.
Like, don't put those on because you'll look like a weird cartoon granny.
Yeah, I kind of think that I'm sure there's some artists that her character design with glasses isn't just her character design without glasses with glasses on it.
Really just depends on who's drawing it, I guess. I like that she's one of those characters that wears different clothes. Like,
yeah, I was noticing that with the overalls and things. I also noticed across a few of her appearances, some artists draw the bridge of her nose going much higher than others.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was sort of looking at where her glasses weren't, and my mind sort of went to, I'm not sure her glasses would actually fit on how she's being drawn at the moment.
Right. Drawn a bit peculiarly that her forehead goes directly into her nose.
And sometimes her nose seems to completely poke out from all the way between her eyes, and sometimes it seems to begin part way down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at non-profile views. It just depends on, it just goes up and down,
Yeah. And again, probably who's drawing her is also a contributor.
Yeah. Certainly a lot of people have had to draw her. I like when she comes back. I really like her with Steven. They were so cute at the beginning. Just she's trying to read this thing that she's passionate about, and he's just starstruck. He's holding this pudgy little face like, wow, I'm getting comfortable, lay at the feet.
I just love his initial not getting it when she tells of the thunder in the book and there's the booming outside, and he thinks, wow, this is a really good book.
Yeah, he thinks that's come from the book or that it's that vivid. It's adorable.
Wait till he finds out about enhanced audiobooks. He'll lose his mind.
Ooh, don't tell Steven. He'll never come out again. Sorry, I can't save the world. I'm listening. So there's yet another addition to the growing list of Connie's fandoms. She's really into this book series, and just kind of thinking about, she does talk about how she's not very social and stuff, so she's got a lot of stuff that she is into. So I don't know. I'm relating really hard to Connie at this point. She's pulled him into her dog copter, and then what was it? The hospital show, Under the Knife, and she had another one. What was the other one? There was something else that she was really into. I'm trying to remember what she had. Under the Knife, that she ended up getting him grounded, and he couldn't finish watching it. And now the favorite book series. I was thinking he should get her into Lonely Blade. She'd be into it.
These are, I'm just thinking about the real world equivalents to the books they're reading.
Uh-huh.
And the one Stevens was reading before, because this week we see he reads the books out of order because he doesn't know they have an order. But I think about the real world analogues of his Homeless Boys books. They often don't have any particular order, and I've read many from what they're reflecting as a kid, and I would doubt I read any of them in order or even noticed that I hadn't, because they're just sort of single adventures that sort of reset at the end.
Yeah, similar to certain TV shows. You can watch any episode and there's not really an ongoing story. There's just kind of a collective understanding of who the characters are, and now they're solving a mystery.
Yeah, it's like you can read the famous 5 books in almost any order, but jump ahead to Harry Potter and there is very definitely a 1 through 7 order.
Right. Yeah. It would basically be incomprehensible, or at least not as fully enjoyable.
Yeah, so it's probably news to him that books can have an order because he's just used to those ones you just read a big stack of.
I like that he's honest with her and he's not trying to act like he understood everything. He's like, am I supposed to know who this guy is? This Plinkman guy who died? And she's like, wait, yes, you should know who that is.
And then it doesn't occur to him that the issue might be reading the books wrongly. There must be something up with the books. They must be broken. That's why they're telling about the characters he hasn't heard of.
Oh my God. And I guess, he did say it in this episode, like, I know nothing all the time. It's like my whole life. So he just probably figured he missed some kind of context. I don't know. Follow the funky flow. That came back.
Yeah, I remember that from his funky flow not being messed up.
Yeah, that was also a Connie episode, so that was cute.
Well, that was the first Connie episode, was it not?
Yes. Yep. Funky Flow was the Connie intro episode. Now we have Funky Flow introduced in a completely different kind of situation.
Yeah, but it's on his mind because he's just been talking to Connie.
Yeah, he's still got it. He's still got that flow. So cute. I really do like their dynamic. when she's like talking to him on the phone, trying to find out, like, it really is such a joy when somebody that you want to share your interests tells you, like, yeah, these books are awesome. You know, this is my favorite thing. But I'm thinking about how she's talking to him on the phone, and her mom is like, the Steven Universe boy would like to speak with you. I swear that's not his real name. that's very
like that
silly.
she's still kind of keeping him at a mental arm's length. So he's the Steven Universe boy, not, Steven, i.e. like the only other person you know.
How many Stevens does she know? How many friends does she even have? So
Maybe she too thinks there's an infestation of Stevens.
oh my God, she's in cahoots. Oh God. So we have Peridot threatening to report them. She's going to tell on them.
Yes. So making the threat explicit, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
We can no longer just sort of keep fighting the occasional probe that shows up and hoping that Homeworld won't notice. Peridot absolutely notices and has the ear of someone significant, or she probably files the report in triplicate, judging from her so far, but she has some way of communicating that point.
Yeah.
So I guess she hasn't talked to Lapis if she's this kind of surprised, because she was surprised at stuff Lapis could have just told her.
Right. She might have had a different reaction to the phrase crystal gems.
Yeah, but she was like confused about which life forms were dominant on Earth. And again, Lapis could have just said, oh yeah, there's humans. I saw a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I was a bit gem cracked out of my mind at the time, but I saw some.
Yeah. And an onion, I think.
Yeah. I got a minor headcanon that Lapis was, as well as angry, slightly mentally unstable because of her gem crack until Stephen healed it. So it wasn't just that she was an angry person, but that she was in a slightly feral state.
Yeah, it had to have affected her somehow, and it wasn't as drastic on the outside as what we saw with Amethyst, but, it makes it all the more likely it was doing something to the way she thinks.
Yeah, well, Amethyst was sort of getting worse and worse, whereas Lapis had a crack, but it seemed to be stable apart from the crack wasn't growing.
Yeah, I didn't notice it getting worse. It was just cracked, and that's how she was.
Follow-up questions!
I couldn't really think of a good probing question to ask you this time.
Even though there's so many probes.
Yes. So maybe I could just ask you a sort of silly one.
Okay, go on.
How about if we're going to have, I guess just you make something up here. So Peridot's going to report them. And so we don't know if she's going to be reporting them to like a king or a CEO, or if it's just like somebody in middle management or what.
Or the Gempress from my dream.
Or the what?
The Gempress. When I had that fever dream of a final episode for the show, the whole thing was run by the Gempress.
There you go. Oh my God. So I was going to ask you for a suggestion on what gemstone her boss might be, and that way we can giggle if it happens to be a character that comes out later, and if not, we'll be like, oh, okay, headcanon.
I think partly because of the esteem we place on them in human culture, I think we might be looking at a diamond, because we haven't, we've got the sort of non-relationship between gems and their counterparts, their actual rocks on Earth, but it would still track that what we consider sort of, the top of the gem hierarchy, the one we use for, big celebrations and engagements and symbols and whatever else, could be the top of their actual hierarchy, that the CEO, the monarch, the Gempress, could be diamond.
Well, Ronaldo thinks so.
Yeah, that's right. Ronaldo thinks is a diamond authority.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, my dream posited the existence of a rogue villainous gem called Blood Diamond. So
Blood Diamond. Isn't that is that a real thing, or is that what they call the diamonds that are dug by people in dangerous situations and in slavery?
Yeah, I think for the most part it's not a separate rock. It just refers to, as you say, people enslaved or under bad conditions or at high risk or getting killed or dying. Bad ways to get diamonds, in summary. But it does sound it does sound like something that once you've contextualized people have the same name as gems, it does sound like a creepy version of that too.
In their society, they'd probably be like, what is blood? Is it anything like this goo that's in my robinoid? Yeah, that is. Oh, I like your answer. So we'll see what.
It would be a very, very clear, unflawed diamond too.
Hmm.
Can't remember the real name of it. Remember that one Queen Victoria had that she kept carving down smaller and smaller to get it absolutely perfect?
Oh, I don't know that story.
Yeah, there was a big chunky diamond Queen Victoria, the actual real life Queen Victoria had.
Uh-huh.
And she was getting it filed down and carved down to try to remove even the slightest flaw and imperfection from it. That some stories are, by the end, the diamond was like half its original size or smaller.
Uh-huh.
So knowing that genuinely, completely unflawed, unbent, unscratched, uncracked, even down to the smallest level diamonds are virtually non-existent, I think the top of the hierarchy would be represented by one that really was all the way clear and clean all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
That the light would just bounce through and off. Even when it's not doing power, just when it's on the boss's body, it would still radiate that way from the light around it.
Cool.
I see that as sort of pinnacle of gem hierarchy.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense.
Yeah, there's probably people who understand actual rocks going, oh no, it's actually far more flawless than a diamond, is there? But I'm talking about cultural perceptions rather than actual geology.
Yeah, and in terms of the show, I'm just like, if I'm thinking about Peridot giving her reports or whatever, like I'm imagining like her saying like, oh, I'm reporting this. So she's going to CC everybody that she knows above her.
Yeah.
Even if it's not her direct supervisor, like, maybe everybody in Ronaldo's authority, Diamond Authority, is going to get an email and go, who is this? Peridot? Who the heck is that? She's doing what on Earth? There's not supposed to be any gems there. They're wiped out.
Also, what's Earth?
I don't know. Like she's not telling us very much about how important her mission is.
She probably thinks it's terribly important. She strikes me as that sort of person.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's got to be her whole world. So, yeah.
Also, we don't know if this is just happening on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know from what Pearl said that it's not just Homeworld and Earth. There are other planets out there. So we don't know if they're trying to kickstart whatever they've left on any other planet, and Earth is first, or Earth is just happens to be where our show is set.
Right.
Or if they're also doing it on like Io, but there's no people there, so there's no problem.
Ooh, that's volcanic, isn't it?
Volcanoes make all kinds of interesting rocks, though.
Yeah, I bet. Well, Garnet said that she can swim in lava, so maybe she'll go take a bath on Io.
But if the kindergartens connect to the biosphere of the planets they're on, imagine what we could do with a place that's mostly volcanoes. You could make some magma warriors or something.
Cool. Magma warriors. There's a lot of cool igneous rocks that they could be.
Yeah, so, maybe even though we've only heard about gem-style rock people, maybe some of the other rocks have got entries into the great sphere of rock persons.
Need some sedimentary rocks going on. Man, I like goofy questions. And we can digress and say all kinds of weird stuff.
Well, it also means that if this stuff does get revealed down the line, we can see how close this completely pulled out of our butts question was to any kind of actual truth.
Oh, it's going to be fun. Because a question like that is fun regardless of whether you're saying something right or saying something partially right or saying something that has nothing to do with the future.
I mean, one of my long-term look forward to is if that dream I had ends up actually being accidentally accurate about anything whatsoever.
With your Gempress person.
What's that?
with your...
Yes, Gempress and Ambassador Olivine.
Ah.
That was part of the dream. They did a state of peace and exchange ambassadors at the end.
Ah.
Earth got Ambassador Olivine and the Gemsphere got Mayor Dewey.
Oh, right. Olivine, isn't that... I'm wondering if I'm remembering it right now, if it's sort of related to Peridot.
Yeah, as its name suggests, it's a kind of olive green color. I think
Right.
it might be a relative. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how rocks being like other rocks really works, but it's definitely
Yeah.
that kind of color.
I may be just associating them because of the color then, but maybe I spoke the truth. Ooh, what else we got? No singing, unless you count. Follow the funky flow. I'm a voice actor. We
Yeah,
just
they
had
could use that as a bonus. They could use it as a hidden bonus track on one of the CDs.
all we really had was like the normal background stuff. We had Peridot's theme, and there's a background track called Gem Shards that plays when you go to creepy places, like under the kindergarten. So it's creepy.
I liked the, I guess you'd say, lighting effect from the kindergarten. The
Yeah.
strangish green, but not covering everything completely in green glow.
Yeah. It was definitely a good way to make it unsettling to have them go under the ground, and there's this whole control room that they didn't know about, and it was atmospherically very effective. It's very creepy and almost quiet.
Yeah, and just kind of sitting there dormantly until, of course, all this stuff happens.
Yeah. Until the crystal gems happened.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of stories by this point that end with, and then the crystal gems happen.
Oh, I also have no recipes.
No, and there's
Nobody-
no food unless someone left their mouth open when they got splattered in goo.
Yeah, that's so sad. No recipes. Nobody ate anything.
Saying anything.
And this was, who drew this one? This was Jeff Liu and Joe Johnston again.
Yeah, I was recognizing their hand this time round.
Yeah.
Especially at the start. Especially at the start, because we saw one of the best way, or at least one of the most effective ways I find to tell is how each of the people or teams draw Stephen himself. And I could recognize their kind of Stephen at the start, especially as we saw him from many angles as he was hanging with Connie.
Yeah. It's just a certain kind of sort of squat version of Stephen that he sometimes gets a little more exaggerated when he's reacting to things. And I remember seeing like when he was freaking out at the end where he realized he really screwed up this time and Peridot is going to squish him. And, so he's just kind of reacting like, oh, I just realized the consequences of my actions. And they drew him all compact and weird looking.
And they draw his mouth jutting out the most in profile compared to their fellows. Some of them even seem to have his mouth almost flush with the rest of his head, but these two definitely don't.
How'd you like to be Stephen and have your jawbones moving around?
He's unconsciously shape-shifting.
Oh, there you go. One day he'll just have a cat head.
They could just mess if it's just have, but as they cut back and forth from between shots, just a cat ear pops up and then it's gone again.
The cat ears on his finger.
If I were him, I would have spent the next week just terrified that my fingers are going to revert to cats after that incident.
Let's see, did I write it down? There's a description for this one that I think was fairly, like they're keeping secrets now. There it is. Stephen and the crystal gems encounter another droid from space. That's good. That tells you nothing.
Yeah, I mean, earlier on, that would have been a gigantic spoiler, but by this point we've seen a bit of that, so it's enough to hint to us that we're going to see some more on that front. And if you're following along, it's probably not too hard to know that we're going to get a bit of advance on the stuff from space part of the story. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think, well, I know I am, and I think many other viewers would have been anticipating that would have been building toward the end of the season, that particular story. And as we're...
I'm glad Peridot was in it.
Yeah, as we're, just shy of 10... We're 8 away from the end of the season, aren't we? So,
This is episode 44, and the last episode is 52.
Yeah, so if they are building towards, there's just enough time to scatter some more things before the final, if in fact that's what they're doing. I mean, sometimes do like to surprise you when they put their big events. Sometimes they put the start of seasons. Game of Thrones always put their season finales one episode early just to keep us on our toes.
If only I had known that.
So I heard that this was one of the ones that had a title that was different in development, like the early draft of it. They called Marble Madness, I think they just called it Gem Droid. And they originally had I've heard a couple stories about this. I think one on the podcast and one just kind of from news that went around that they kind of struggled with this one. How are they going to get Stephen to ask the questions? What was the main conflict going to be that was going to bring us to this point? And I think they had like a whole thing where he ended up trapped in a room with a droid. It's like, all right.
And they eventually just cut to the chase. How should we make Stephen ask questions? Let's just make Stephen ask questions.
Yeah. And one of the places was finally given a name when Garnet said it. The droid landed on Mask Island, which I think that I said, okay, that island is later, it's revealed that it's named Mask Island, but I just arbitrarily decided that doesn't count as a spoiler.
Sometimes in shows there are facts that they just sort of almost literally forget to put in the show rather than being actual spoilers.
Right.
I don't think I was too badly cut up by knowing that island where it all happened was called Mask Island. And of course I recognized the pad location this time. So
the place
it was a cute callback.
And Lars and Sadie and Stephen went on vacation and got stranded. They called that Mask Island. So now it officially has a name. It's spoken by Garnet. It's real. For real. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I think all the other stuff we knew that it was named after a video game. And
yeah, well, it was one of my old favorites, so I spotted that right away.
Yeah, of course. Nerd recognized nerd.
So probably just when they had just Gem Droid, that was probably its placeholder title because they just thought, let's go with something literal until we think of something clever. Because there were Gem Droids in this one. I mean, she called them plug robots, but they were droids made and maintained by Gems. They're Gem Droids.
Yeah, she's got the plug Robinoid and a flask Robinoid. And I don't think she's named any other ones out loud, but I wonder if it has a different name when it turns into that weird little hand one that presses the thing.
At first I thought she said Pug Robinoid, which was incredibly cute, but sadly my brain kind of recapped that moment. It was like, oh, she said plug.
Yeah. On the one hand, I don't know that they have pug gem dogs, but on the other hand, then you just have to start asking, why are they even speaking English? So
yeah. As I joked before, that we've already gone from why do gems speak English into why do gems also speak German? So
agreed. Besides kindergartens, I'm sure that there's plenty of other words that have their roots in other Earth languages. And what were their choices, right?
Yeah, I'm prepared to go with the Stargate explanation, which is, what a coincidence.
What a coincidence that this entire alien species that can literally change its shape and decide on its form or whatever, but they just happen to have a head and a torso and usually 2 legs and 2 arms like us.
I can't remember if I mentioned it on the show before, but one of the things with languages, with aliens in sci-fi and things like that, is that it's fun to have nerd conversations about, but in terms of the story, if you try to do it too realistically or explain it too hard, it just bogs everything down.
Yeah.
So you just go with, I guess they do speak English, or everyone's got a magic translator just off camera.
Yeah. I really like the Douglas Adams version. Translating, huh?
My nerd thing of that is that if it's making people understood, it shouldn't be the Babel fish. It should be the Rosetta fish.
Yes.
Because I'm that big a nerd.
Yes, it's kind of backwards.
But it's such a cool idea that, I'll roll with it.
Yes.
In fact, knowing him, he probably did that on purpose to see if nerds like us would notice.
Either that or it has something to do with what it's eating versus what it's pooping out. Its excretions are what make it understood. Wow, we are extremely nerdy. I think we definitely have viewers/listeners who will understand all of this.
We can just tell ourselves that there are breeding farms full of Babel fish on the Gem homeworld, and off we go.
For a species that I don't see any evidence that they have ears.
They just shapeshift a little hole and go pluk.
Yeah. Well,
Onion can't use one.
Yeah. Technically, there's been a couple of parts of just frames of animation where it looks like Amethyst had ears when her hair was blowing around, but you will never find out whether Garnet has ears under her hair.
No.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably even money how much of that is her hair and how much of that is her head too.
Now I don't want to think about it.
We're not supposed to know. There are some things we're just not meant to know.
Yeah. she takes off her hair like in Garnet's universe, and you find like 10 more eyes under.
Ah. Oh dear.
You never know with her.
Just to remind the listeners, Ivy is the one that hates body horror.
But I love Garnet, and I love the idea of her trolling you. And then you just never know if she always has those eyes or if she's shape-shifting to mess with you. Goodness.
I love that little aside of Onion's human, I think.
Right. Onion, I think. Yeah, I think that was your biggest laugh reaction during the actual episode.
It sounds like Onion, the reputation I've given Onion sounds like I'm not the only one who gives him that.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen is very charitable in general, and he's just like, I'm literally not certain that this fellow's human. Goodness. Well, we've seen his dad.
Yeah.
Inconclusive as well.
Yeah.
Brand spanking new, mint in box.
I'm looking at the merchandise that's sitting next to me. Should I show it to you?
Yeah, bring it on.
Well, again, as usual, I try to make it sort of related. You remember the backpack hangers that I showed you a while back? Turns out there was a Peridot one that I wasn't allowed to show you.
Oh, hey, hi, Peridot.
She's very angry.
Oh yeah, that's quite an expression on her there.
I wonder if I can, yeah, she's mad. But she's kind of pointing her weird-looking fingers at, trying to
Yeah,
look
she
at
did
her.
have iPad fingers again this week.
Yes, yeah, she did. So yeah, she's sort of in a ninja pose.
Yeah, so
And she's hanging her head.
yeah, she made it nicely into 3D, as we've seen. Not all of them survived the transition so well.
So that's actually the complete set of them that she was the only one you weren't allowed to see when I was showing off the whole set before. There's Pearl. I took them all down there's like 5 Stevens.
Yeah.
There's this little cute Steven that stands there with his shirt up and his tongue out.
And his little power pose.
Yeah, he's just like, don't be afraid. I'm adorable as hell. I showed you both Garnets before. They're little squatters.
And almost the Iron Man pose.
Yeah. We got Amethyst. There's only one Amethyst. I think I've showed you the lion before. I seem to recall doing that.
Yeah.
And 3 more Stevens. There's the Tiger Millionaire. This isn't Steven. Don't tell Lars. And Shield Steven. He's tangled in my headphones. There he goes. Shield Steven. And this was Peace Steven, he was the one that I couldn't get for these mystery bag ones. I kept buying more, and it was never Peace Steven, and he wasn't even the rare one. I had to buy more packs 4 times before I finally got Peace Steven.
What did you do with all the excesses? What did you do with all the doubles and excesses? And
It's kind of a sad story. I started to sell them on eBay because I found them for sale, and nobody else was buying them. So I figured, this will probably sell really well. And the first few that I managed to sell, people were buying them. I was selling them pretty cheap, and I would send the person the item as well as like a cute little drawing on an index card and stuff. It was fun. And I had like 3 amethysts, I think, and I had them up for sale. And one day someone bought one. It was shortly after I moved to my new house that I live in. That this was in 2017. And I was like, I forgot that this was up, that this entry was still live. So I go to try to find the amethyst, and I'm like, where did I put the extras of these? Where are all my extras? And I couldn't find them anywhere.
Oh.
And I think that what happened is I put them into a bag with their wrappers, and then it got mistaken as trash. And I think they were thrown away.
Oh, bummer.
Not all of them, but some of them. So I'm actually really upset that happened if it did. I mean, if it didn't, they're somewhere in my house and have been for 3 years. But I'm pretty organized and I don't lose things. So I probably didn't so much lose it as mistake it for trash in the weirdness of the move, which, happens to the best of us.
Yeah, it's a sad thing that moving house just sometimes absorbs stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if that happened, it was totally my fault because I put them in a bag and thought they were trash. But I had to write to the eBay person and tell them that I had to cancel the order because I can't find the item. It's like, wow. But I didn't even realize it was still for sale. It was experimental and I had marked them incorrectly, I guess, for not expiring after 7 days if not sold or something. It was just this perpetually renewing 30-day sale, and I had 2 of them listed as available, and I never found them. And that's so sad. But what it ended up meaning is I have one and exactly one of each. Some of them I gave to other people. So I gave a couple of them to friends at my art club who like Steven Universe. So I don't use them as backpack hangers or as keychains or anything because I'm afraid I would lose them or the clip would break. So they have a little display in one of my bedrooms. Safe there. Yay. So I brought them in here to show you. And that's the complete set of backpack hangers. So
Nice.
none of them are a secret anymore. They're all revealed.
So far into this world I've got. I can see all the backpack hangers.
Yeah. Is it 11? 11 of them. So 5
Many of whom are
Stevens.
Stephen.
Huh?
Many of whom are Stephen.
Yes. Many of whom are Stephen, and then inexplicably 2 Garnets, and then 1 Pearl, 1 Amethyst, 1 Lion, and 1 Peridot.
It was a bit of a random inclusion.
Yes. It seems a very strange thing, especially since a lot of things that do have a Peridot don't have a Lapis. So it's weird how, she at least was sympathetic to Stephen, even though she also fought the crystal gem. So
It also
seems
passes over more familiar characters like Greg and Connie and what have you.
Agreed, yeah. It's very strange when there's a group of characters. It makes sense that it would be Stephen and the 3 main gems, but then it really seems to be up for weird merchandising decisions.
Yeah,
Like
there's one of those blind pack dispensers at a nearby shop, and it's got the actual figures in the display on top of the machine, and yeah, it's the main 4 and Greg.
Oh, what are those?
I'm not sure because I haven't sort of looked closely since I first went there, but I remember, well, at the time I knew little enough about the series just to assume Greg was the other main character, but now thinking back, it seems a more random choice. Let's see if it gets rotated back to the front again, because they sort of put different ones out every so often.
Oh, okay.
Different machines. So if it gets rotated back to the front soon, I'll be able to see if they're key rings or figurettes or what.
Just remember that there was I'm looking over at my display. I think it's like keychain type plushies, and they didn't put amethyst in it. And I believe I've talked about this on here before because we've talked a lot about merchandising and weird choices, but they made a set that did not include amethyst, which blew my mind because there were 2 Stevens and a lion and a cookie cat.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And
yeah, like y'all just really literally don't know what you're doing, because there's no way that Steven would want 2 of himself and no amethyst. Be like Steven. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no amethyst in that set.
Amethyst was sulking and withholding her likeness rights.
Well, Greg's not in it either, so maybe they're looking at each other's junk.
Well, Greg's likeness is all tied up with Mr. Universe licensing, I'm sure.
See, there you go. Yeah, it seems that there should be more inclusion of Greg and Connie in these things. And I get why they don't put them in because they're not like gem characters, but come on.
It's just weird when they like offer one random additional selection which doesn't fit the pattern at all.
Yeah. Here's a bunch of Stevens and his friends and Peridot who tried to kill him today.
It used to happen with the Doctor Who figures a lot, and then you'd be going, wow, I'm sure glad we got a bunch of these clockwork robot shelf warmers and not a bunch of the main characters.
Yeah. I'm still surprised that there's never been anything of Sadie and Lars,
Oh, yeah. You'd think by this point some merchandiser along the line would have seen fit to include them.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm a bit of a ridiculous person, and I'd be all over it if they released a Fish Stew Pizza Family playset. Like, please give me these minor characters who live in Beach City and run a pizza shop.
Well, you probably want enough to recreate the scene from the title sequence when the Mr. Universe van drives past.
Mm-hmm. I mean, some sets do have Onion.
Actually, Onion looks like he'd translate to 3D well. He's already halfway to Troll Doll.
Onion, Connie and Greg, all of those have been something. The backpack hangers didn't make a Rose Quartz.
No.
I see why. She's probably more difficult to fold up in a crouching pose than Garnet is.
Yeah, you'd kind of have to just scale up for her because, well, her bottom half with her skirt dress, however it's arranged, is like a solid meringue.
What a visual. Oh, I love Rose's sausage curls. She's got such complicated tube hair.
Yeah, and the way it's kind of shiny, and shiny in a way that no one else's is, even under weird lighting conditions, whereas hers is like that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even some of the weird effects that Stephen has had when he's very excited about things are not that shiny. Like, Rose, I must know, where in Beach City do you get your hair done?
And then there's Greg wax it afterwards, and that's why it's got the shine.
Mm. She just goes through the superwash. Hot wax special. Summer wax. Oh my gosh.
If it's good enough for my girlfriend, it's good enough for you.
I love that. I can just imagine her going through the superwash just for entertainment sometimes. Like, Greg, I need to go again.
I can imagine her getting roped into some poorly made homemade adverts for local Beach City television.
Wow.
With a car wash.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I need to see those commercials now if they exist.
See, because we mostly know Rose from her being a gem warrior and from mothering Stephen, but she must have had a bunch of other times with Greg to make that even a thing.
Indeed. We need some kind of sweet lovers montage for the two of them. And the rule would be it would have to include the superwash scene that I just made up, that I've decided is canon.
There you go.
Well, I have nothing else for this Marvel madness for you today. I'm out of content and out of steam.
As we said, there's not actually a lot of story in this. Stephen's peace signing me right through the video. Not actually a lot of story events to this one when it boils down, but obviously it's going to be pretty significant in the long run.
Yeah, it seems a ball rolling episode. Something has definitely been kicked into high gear now that Peridot knows they're there and she's going to tell on them. So that's, I don't know, if I was Garnet and I needed to sleep, I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. She can just sit there and make plans. So maybe should we wrap this one with what has become tradition on some of our episodes where I tell you what the next episode's title is?
Oh, yes, of course. What is next?
Are you sure? Episode 45 is called Rose's Scabbard.
I know who Rose is and I know what a scabbard is, and we've seen Rose's sword, so I'm gambling this is a literal title.
Oh boy, I can say no more. Okay, that's I'm gonna button my lip.
So we'll see you next time, or hear you next time for Rose's Scabbard, the sheath of one Rose Quartz.
Indeed. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye.
You've been listening to Ivy and Daria on Not So Giant Women.
You can find episodes of the show in video form by looking up Not So Giant Women on YouTube.
Or in audio form at anchor.fm/NotSoGiantWomen or your podcatcher of choice. You can also find us on Facebook.
Audio production by Daria.
Video production and music by Ivy.
Daria can also be heard on Podsploitation, the Ozploitation podcast.
And Ivy at her Steven Universe fan blog at love-takes-work.tumblr.com.
Steven Universe was created by Rebecca Sugar and remains property of Cartoon Network.
No infringement is intended.